What does the term Rio Reset actually mean, and why is it gaining attention now? The term Rio Reset refers to a growing movement among several emerging economies, particularly those in BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to reshape the global financial order. Inspired by recent summits and proposals, the movement pushes for reducing reliance on the US dollar and Western-centric financial institutions, like the IMF and World Bank. The name itself ties back to Brazil's leadership role, using Rio symbolically as the face of a new global economic paradigm. At its core, the Rio Reset challenges long-standing Western dominance in monetary systems. It aims to create alternative trade and credit systems, potentially involving gold-backed digital currencies or region-specific financial coalitions. This isn't just about economic ideology, it's about power, sovereignty, and the desire to shift global influence. By redefining the rules of engagement, these nations seek to increase their leverage on the global stage. What's different now compared to previous calls for reform is the convergence of real-world actions, like China's bilateral oil deals in UN or Russia's energy transactions outside of SWIFT. The reset is no longer just theoretical. It's materializing in trade deals, infrastructure agreements, and financial innovations that could bypass Western oversight entirely. Critics argue that the Rio Reset is more about rhetoric than realistic execution. They point to technological challenges, economic fragmentation, and the dominance of the US dollar as barriers to implementation. Yet even if full execution is years away, the intentions and groundwork being laid signal a potentially profound shift in international relations and economic strategy. In a world where economic control often translates to political dominance, the Rio Reset is more than a fiscal reshuffle. It's a challenge to the status quo. Whether it succeeds or falters, its very existence reflects a desire among many nations to break free from perceived economic dependency and to establish a new order that prioritizes autonomy. Which countries are behind the Rio Reset, and what do they hope to gain? Brazil has stepped into a bold leadership role, with President Lula advocating for economic sovereignty through stronger South-South alliances. Brazil's geographical and political position makes it a natural convener of developing economies across Latin America and the global South. Hosting key summits and launching diplomatic initiatives, it seeks to recenter global discussions in favor of emerging voices. China brings technological strength and financial might to the movement. With its digital yuan and cross-border payment systems already in use, China provides the infrastructure needed for alternatives to SWIFT and the Petrodollar. Its Belt and Road Initiative, increasingly conducted outside the dollar system, exemplifies how the country is putting principles into practice. Russia's motivations are also strategic, but heavily driven by sanctions. Cut off from much of the Western financial ecosystem, Moscow has doubled down on bilateral trade agreements using rubles, yuan, and gold. Their cooperation with China and Iran hints at a geopolitical bloc ready to build an economic world that's less susceptible to Western control. South Africa and India, though more cautious, still play crucial roles. South Africa offers continental leadership in Africa's economic policy, while India's massive market and growing fintech sector give the movement scale. Each nation brings unique incentives, some defensive, some visionary, but the shared goal is independence. Together, these countries envision a system that is multipolar, digital-first, and less prone to Western political influence. Their unified push reflects both growing frustration and emerging confidence that the post-World War II financial structure no longer serves their interests. Why are these nations pushing for a financial reset at this particular moment in history? The timing of the Rio Reset is not accidental. The post-pandemic world has exposed vulnerabilities in the global economy, particularly around dependence on centralized Western institutions. Supply chain breakdowns, rising inflation, and unequal vaccine distribution all contributed to a growing sense of injustice among developing nations. For many, the current system seems not only outdated, but unfairly tilted toward a few major powers. The Russia-Ukraine war further underscored the geopolitical risks of being tethered to Western financial systems. When the US froze Russia's central bank assets and disconnected it from SWIFT, it sent a clear message: economic tools can become weapons. This alarmed other nations, especially those who fear they could be next if political winds shift. The Rio Reset is, in part, a hedge against that risk. Additionally, Technological readiness is now at a level where alternatives to traditional banking and monetary frameworks are feasible. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are being actively tested across multiple nations, offering real-time settlement systems that do not require Western intermediaries. What was once visionary is now executable. There's also growing political momentum. Leaders across the global south are calling for de-dollarization, not just as a protest but as a strategy. For them, this is a chance to shape a world order that aligns with their values and interests, rather than adapting to the rules of the post-Bretton Woods era. Finally, economic disparities have grown so wide that reform feels not only justified but urgent. Countries rich in resources are seeking fairer terms of trade, and populations in those countries are becoming more vocal. The Rio Reset reflects both top-down leadership and bottom-up pressure to create something new right away. What does the Rio Reset mean for the dominance of the US dollar? The US dollar has long held the crown as the world's reserve currency, granting America enormous leverage in trade, sanctions, and debt issuance. But that dominance is now being questioned like never before. The Rio Reset is explicitly a challenge to dollar supremacy, and if successful, it could weaken America's global economic influence. In practice, that means more countries trading with one another in local currencies, or in alternatives like gold or digital coins. China and Brazil have already executed bilateral trade deals in yuan and reais, and Russia sells energy for rubles or yuan. These moves, while incremental, chip away at the dollar's transactional monopoly. What makes the threat serious is that even US allies are watching. France recently completed a yuan-based LNG trade deal with China, and Saudi Arabia has shown openness to selling oil in currencies other than the dollar. The sacred petrodollar may no longer be as untouchable as it once was. Still, the dollar isn't going anywhere fast. Its liquidity, depth of market, and military backing make it a formidable fixture. But erosion has begun. Even a 10 to 15% drop in global dollar-based trade could raise borrowing costs for the US, and reduce its ability to project soft power through institutions like the IMF. The broader concern is symbolic. A declining dollar reflects a shift in global trust. If countries feel the US dollar is being weaponized for political ends, they'll seek alternatives, not out of ideology, but out of self-preservation. That's the real danger the reset presents for America. Are the BRICS nations truly capable of reshaping the global financial order, or is the Rio Reset more symbolic than strategic? The ambitions of the Rio Reset sound bold: a new currency system, an alternative to the Western financial architecture, and a new set of global economic rules. But critics argue it may be more talk than transformation. BRICS nations are still heavily reliant on Western trade partners, still face internal political instability, and still lack cohesive financial infrastructures that can rival the West's well-oiled institutions. A major challenge is interoperability. Each BRICS country operates within distinct legal, regulatory, and economic frameworks. So aligning these systems into a single unified platform that can challenge the IMF or World Bank is a monumental task. Even creating a shared currency faces barriers. Who would issue it? Who would regulate it? What would back it? And would all members have equal influence? Additionally, some BRICS economies are facing domestic issues that could hamper cooperation. For instance, Brazil's political volatility, South Africa's energy crisis, and Russia's isolation from Western systems all complicate unity. China and India, while economically powerful, often find themselves at odds geopolitically, especially over border disputes and competing regional interests. Still, we shouldn't dismiss the Rio Reset entirely. Even if it doesn't fully replace current systems, its mere existence creates leverage. The conversation alone forces institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and SWIFT to reassess how inclusive and equitable they are. This movement might not need to win to shift the rules, it just needs to make the existing systems feel pressure. Whether it's a full-on reset or a symbolic push for reform, the Rio Reset reflects a growing impatience with the status quo. It's a strategic message: evolve with us or be replaced. Is the Rio Reset a serious challenge to dollar dominance across the globe? One of the boldest claims around the Rio Reset is its potential to dethrone the US dollar. For decades, the dollar has been the world's reserve currency, used in global trade, banking, and energy markets. The reset proposes a BRICS-led alternative, a shared digital or commodity-backed currency. In theory, this could reduce dependency on the dollar and shift financial control toward emerging economies. But replacing the dollar isn't just about printing new money. It's about trust, infrastructure, and consistency. The dollar is backed not just by the U.S. economy, but by deep financial markets, legal reliability, and political influence. For the reset's currency to compete, BRICS would need transparent regulation, global adoption, and political unity, a tall order for a bloc that often disagrees internally. That said, some erosion of dollar dominance is already happening. China and Russia have been trading in their own currencies. Even some U.S. allies are exploring alternatives in fear of future sanctions or over-reliance. The reset could accelerate this trend, turning whispers of de-dollarization into real policy shifts. Yet there's also a danger here. Multiple competing currencies can lead to volatility, confusion, and economic inefficiencies. Imagine every country juggling new financial systems, payment platforms, and currency reserves. For businesses and consumers alike, this uncertainty could disrupt global trade and slow growth. The key takeaway? The Rio Reset might not dethrone the dollar outright, but it could chip away at its supremacy. Over time, that erosion could reshape how nations save, trade, and wield power, even if the dollar remains dominant for years to come. What does the Rio Reset mean for everyday Americans? While the Rio Reset may feel abstract or distant, its effects could ripple into the daily lives of many Americans. If the dollar weakens globally, imports could become more expensive, raising prices on everything from electronics to groceries. Inflation might accelerate, particularly for goods priced in foreign currencies. That's a hidden cost that could squeeze household budgets in the name of geopolitical change. More broadly, the reset challenges the financial systems Americans have grown up with. International confidence in the dollar has helped fund U.S. deficits cheaply. If global buyers look elsewhere, borrowing costs might rise, and that could mean higher interest rates for student loans, mortgages, and credit cards, tightening the financial squeeze already felt by many. Some also worry about America's standing. The prestige of being the world's economic anchor has brought not only influence but also security. If the Rio Reset diminishes U.S. dominance, it could affect national pride and perceptions of strength. That shift might trickle into politics, identity, and even how Americans see their role in the world. On the flip side, this moment could be a wake-up call. The reset might push the U.S. to innovate, strengthen its infrastructure, and make long-overdue economic reforms. Challenges often produce progress, and global competition may bring out America's resilience if it rises to meet the moment. Lastly, there's the emotional toll. Stories of decline, whether real or exaggerated, can fuel anxiety and division. If the Rio Reset dominates headlines without clarity or nuance, it could deepen distrust in government, media, and institutions. That makes honest, balanced dialogue more essential than ever. Is the Rio Reset just a financial issue or a sign of deeper geopolitical realignment? What many overlook is the potential for the Rio Reset to evolve beyond economics into a full-fledged geopolitical alliance. BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have long discussed creating alternative institutions to those dominated by the West, including financial networks, media outlets, and trade agreements. If these initiatives gain traction, they could dramatically reshape international cooperation. What began as a monetary conversation could become a global movement, redefining international power structures. Such shifts may mirror the early stages of alliances like NATO or the EU, built from shared goals, but expanding into broader partnerships. The Rio Reset might catalyze cultural, technological, and political exchanges, creating a sphere of influence that rivals traditional Western blocs. Countries feeling marginalized by the US-led global order could find opportunity and empowerment in these emerging systems. That possibility adds urgency to how the rest of the world responds to BRICS' ambitions. The implications for the average citizen are rarely discussed. Could new trade and currency standards mean cheaper goods from BRICS nations, or would they trigger economic isolation and higher costs for imports? Global alliances don't just affect headlines, they shape everyday experiences from job opportunities to what's on store shelves. If the Rio Reset spurs further division, it might deepen economic inequality and political tension worldwide. This isn't just about opposing or supporting a new alliance, it's about understanding whether the world is entering a new Cold War dynamic, or creating a more equitable multipolar system. Critics argue BRICS lacks unity, but proponents believe shared economic pressures are enough to fuel deeper collaboration. As always, truth likely lies somewhere between, and public discourse will shape its future. Whether you're skeptical or hopeful about BRICS's direction, recognizing the full scope of its ambitions is crucial. The Rio Reset may be more than a financial movement. It could be the first domino in a long series of global shifts that define the 21st century. Is the Rio Reset a warning sign for the West, or a wake-up call to rethink our place in the world? The Rio Reset has become a symbol of disruption. For some, it threatens economic stability and Western dominance, while for others, it represents long overdue reform, giving emerging nations a voice in shaping the future. Whatever your stance, it's impossible to ignore that a change is underway. Global economic systems are shifting. Ignoring this momentum could leave nations and individuals unprepared for what lies ahead. We've explored the foundation of the Rio Reset, from its proposed BRICS currency to the power moves of nations like China and Russia. We've examined the economic consequences, technological challenges, and ripple effects for developing countries. These aren't abstract policy points, they're future-defining questions that touch every corner of our lives. And the answer isn't as simple as being for or against it. What's most striking is how emotionally charged this debate has become. The Rio Reset taps into deep anxieties, about losing national identity, about globalization, and about fairness. But it also offers a glimpse of hope for a world less dependent on a single system. How we choose to respond, through awareness, policy, or cooperation, will shape the outcome more than the initiative itself ever could. As viewers, citizens, and thinkers, the goal isn't to pick sides blindly. It's to ask the right questions, recognize the forces in motion, and demand transparency from our leaders. Whether the Rio Reset succeeds or falters, the demand for alternatives in global economics is real and growing. The only way to navigate this transition is by staying informed and refusing to be passive. The Rio Reset is already reshaping conversations around the world. The more we understand it, the better prepared we are, not just to react to change, but to influence it. This isn't just a BRICS story, it's a global one. And now, it's your story too. Do you see the Rio Reset as a threat or an opportunity? Do you believe BRICS can truly challenge the global order, or will it crumble under its own weight? Is the Rio Reset something to fear or something to embrace? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective, especially if it challenges what was just discussed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell if this video made you pause, think, or even question what you thought you knew. And share it if someone in your circle is still unaware of what's coming. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.